There are whispers on the waves, stories the sea has tried to swallow but never quite managed to drown. Legends pass from sailor to sailor, of ghost ships adrift with no crew, of cursed vessels that vanish in storms and reappear decades later, coated in rust and blood. These tales are not bedtime stories. They're warnings. In the darkest depths of the maritime world, beneath the crashing tides and hidden in the fog, lies a history not written in books, but etched in screams, salt, and shadow. You're about to enter a world where the sea doesn't just claim lives, it keeps their souls. In this chilling saga, we'll uncover the truth behind the most horrifying maritime legends ever whispered. A journey of madness, fear, hallucinations, and unholy secrets, leading straight into the abyss of the unknown. But beware. Once you board the ghost ship, you might never return the same. Now here's a question for you, brave reader. If you were stranded in the middle of the ocean and saw a vessel with no crew drifting toward you, would you climb aboard to uncover the truth? Or let the unknown sail past, forever haunted by what might have been? Let us know in the comments. And if you love stories that chill your spine and leave your pulse racing, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, because this is only the beginning. The ocean has secrets, and we're about to drag them into the light. The night was as black as oil, the sky above swallowing the stars in a thick, unmoving layer of storm clouds. Thunder cracked like splitting bones across the sky. On board the Calypso's Wraith, a research vessel chartered by a group of deep-sea historians, tension hung in the air like fog. Captain Elias Monroe gripped the rusted helm, his knuckles pale against the dark wood. A man hardened by decades at sea, he wasn't one to flinch. But tonight there was something wrong. Something off. The wind was too still. The waves were too calm. The instruments were dead, all dials frozen. Even the compass spun slowly in place. Useless. Below deck, a small group huddled in the lab room. Dr. Mara Voss, a maritime historian obsessed with ghost ship lore. Levi Kane, a deep-sea diver and former Navy salvage specialist. And twins Riley and Rena Cordova, tech engineers who believed every haunting had a rational explanation. They were analyzing a distress signal that had been intercepted 30 minutes earlier. Only it hadn't come through any known frequency. No ship ID, no coordinates, just static, and a voice. Croaking, whispering. Mara leaned in, replaying the audio. Bored. Us. They won't let go. Stay away. Stay away. Rena turned pale. That doesn't sound like a normal Mayday. Levi frowned. That's not even a distress format I recognize. It's too old, like 19th century naval wave bursts. Captain Monroe burst into the room, rain soaking his coat. Whatever that thing is, it's jamming our equipment. GPS, radar, sonar, all dead. We're sailing blind. Riley glanced at a flickering monitor. But look, this just lit up. Something's showing up on infrared, straight ahead. They rushed to the deck. Lightning split the sky, and in that brief, blinding flash, they saw it. A colossal silhouette looming in the distance. A derelict vessel, drifting against the current. No sails, no engines, no sound. That can't be, Mara whispered. That looks like the Isadora Bright. Monroe's eyes narrowed. Impossible. That ship vanished in 1893 number it disappeared. There's a difference. Despite every instinct screaming otherwise, they approached. As the vessels drew close, a bitter cold surged over the Calypso's Wraith, chilling the air by 10 degrees in seconds. Frost formed on the rails. The waves below grew violent, smashing against the hull with increasing fury. Drop anchor! Monroe barked. We're not docking. We're launching the drone. Rena rushed below deck and returned with a submersible drone, nicknamed Kraken Eye. They lowered it into the water, its camera blinking to life, sending a live feed to the onboard screens. The underwater view showed the ghost ship's hull. Massive, cracked, covered in barnacles and algae, but ancient, unmistakable. Letters on the bow barely visible, Isadora Bright. Gas echoed around the lab. Mara covered her mouth. It's really her. As Kraken Eye rose to scan the upper deck, something flickered across the feed. A figure, standing motionless at the bow. A man. No, what looked like a man. Translucent, drenched in water, his eyes dark voids. Skin bloated, white, his mouth open in a silent scream. Then, static. The feed died. All lights on the ship flickered and went black. A metallic groan echoed across the sea, like a leviathan waking from slumber. Rena dropped the controller. What the hell was that? Sounded like a warning, Levi muttered. Or a welcome. Captain Monroe shook his head. No one's boarding that thing. We log the sighting and wait for daylight. But Mara's eyes were glowing with obsession. We can't leave. This is history. This is proof. We need to step on board. We need to document it. Levi pulled her aside. People who chase ghosts don't always make it back. Mara's lips curled into a thin smile. Then I'll be the first who does. The others retired uneasily, agreeing to make a decision at dawn. That night no one slept. The Calypso's Wraith moaned in the current, ropes creaking like gallows ropes. And then came the screams. Riley bolted upright in his bunk. It was Rena. He tore down the hallway, Levi close behind. Her cabin door was flung open, her bed empty, sheets soaked in brine. She's gone, Riley shouted. Where the hell is she? The sound of footsteps echoed above deck. Slosh, slosh, slosh. They raced topside. There she stood. Rena. At the edge of the ship, her eyes glazed, staring at the Isadora Bright. Her lips moved slowly, whispering something unintelligible. Levi stepped forward cautiously. Rena, hey. Step back. You're not... She turned to them. Her pupils were entirely black. They called me, she said softly, voice layered with an unnatural echo. The sea remembers. The sea never forgets. And with that, she fell backward into the water, disappearing without a splash. Riley screamed, diving in after her, but the sea was still, silent, empty. Captain Monroe and Mara arrived too late. The group stood in stunned horror, the wind howling around them. She just vanished, Levi gasped. A thick fog rolled in, swallowing the Isadora Bright in shadow. And then, the voice returned. From every speaker, every radio, even through the wind. You should not have come. The fog grew thicker, curling like smoke around the Calypso's Wraith, pressing in on all sides until it was impossible to tell sea from sky. Mara gripped the cold railing with trembling fingers, her breath coming in shallow bursts. Beside her, Riley sat drenched and shaking, wrapped in a thermal blanket, his lips moving but no sound escaping. He hadn't said a word since diving in after his sister. The others were gathered in the ship's galley, lanterns lit, creating long dancing shadows on the steel walls. Levi paced the room like a caged animal, fury and fear warring across his face. She didn't drown. I've been diving my whole life. I've pulled men from the bottom of trenches. She wasn't in that water. Then where the hell is she? Monroe snapped, slamming his fist on the table. People don't just vanish into calm seas. Mara turned the volume knob on the old emergency radio, hoping for anything. A crackle, a voice, a clue. But the only sound was the ocean whispering through the hull. Or was it whispering? Listen, she whispered. They all fell silent. Voices, faint, distant, singing, melancholy and haunting, like a lullaby sung in morning. It wasn't coming from the radio. It was coming from beneath the ship. Levi drew his dive knife instinctively. If that's some ghost playing games, I swear. Levi, Mara interrupted. I want to go over there. Monroe shook his head. Absolutely not. One's already missing. I won't lose another. Mara met his eyes. I'm not asking for permission. They returned to the deck. The Isadora Bright floated eerily still in the mist, its hull now closer than before, though neither vessel had moved. Mara adjusted her harness, flashlight strapped to her chest, recorder in her pocket, camera clipped to her belt. I'll tether, Levi said reluctantly, throwing a line between the two ships. 20 minutes. We pull you back if you go silent. I won't be silent, she said, half to reassure herself. She climbed the rope ladder Levi secured between the ships, each step slippery with salt and shadow. As she reached the edge of the Isadora Bright, A coldness wrapped around her like a wet shroud. The deck creaked under her weight, coated in moss and something darker, stains that looked like dried blood. "Still with us?" Levi's voice buzzed through the radio. "Yeah," Mara replied, voice low. "I'm on the main deck. It smells like rot and rust. And something else. Something burnt." She moved carefully, stepping over snapped ropes and torn sails, her boots crunching glass and bone. The wheel at the helm was fused in place, rusted over entirely. A single lantern hung from the mast, unlit but swaying, as if someone had just walked by. Suddenly, a burst of static screamed through her earpiece. "Levi, Monroe, can you hear me?" No response, only whispers. A door creaked open behind her, slow and deliberate. She turned sharply, flashlight beam sweeping across the shadow. Nothing. Then, footsteps. Thump. 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 She spun again. Still nothing. The temperature dropped sharply, her breath now visible in the air. Mara entered the captain's quarters, camera flicking on. The room was frozen in time, charts still scattered across the table. A cracked portrait of a woman hung crookedly on the wall, glass splintered over the floor. A leather-bound journal lay open on the desk, ink smeared as if by bloodied fingers. She leaned closer, reading aloud. "They said the sea would protect us, but we've gone too deep. We woke something. A hunger that doesn't sleep. It watches from the dark, behind the waves. It's in our minds, our dreams. The ship is no longer ours. We belong to her now." Suddenly the walls groaned. The door slammed shut behind her. The lantern overhead flared to life by itself. Mara backed toward the door but froze. In the reflection of the shattered glass, she saw them. Faces, crowded behind her, dozens, rotting, wet, their eyes lifeless. Their mouths moved without sound. Some had no jaws. Others wept black tears. She spun around. The room was empty. No, not empty. The journal was gone. She bolted for the door, heart pounding. But as she reached the deck, she saw it. Levi's tether had been cut. "Levi, Monroe, someone respond," she cried into the radio. Only static replied. She stumbled back toward the ladder, but it was no longer there. Instead, at the edge of the ship, standing as if waiting, was Rena, dripping wet, pale, smiling. "You came," she whispered. "We've been waiting for you, Mara. We need you." Mara backed away in horror. "Rena, you're dead." Rena tilted her head. "Death is a doorway here. This ship is alive. She remembers everything." Mara's flashlight flickered and died. From every direction the singing returned, stronger now, louder, the voices of the damned. Rena reached forward, her fingers soaked and pruned. "Don't be afraid. The sea knows your name." Mara screamed. On the Calypso's Wraith, Levi gripped the railing. "She's been gone too long," he muttered. "I'm going after her." Monroe held him back. "No, we wait another minute." A sound rose from the water. A song, clear, terrifying. And then something emerged. A shape dripping, enormous, crawling up the side of the ghost ship, like a nightmare pulled from the abyss. Tentacles made of mist and shadow, eyes like broken lanterns. Its form impossible, writhing between dimensions. The Isadora Bright let out a sound like a death rattle, and the fog closed in completely. Levi's breath caught in his throat. The thing, no, the entity, crawling up the side of the Isadora Bright, defied all logic. It moved like smoke yet had weight. Its limbs, blacker than the void, slithered with the rhythm of the sea. Its massive, flickering eyes opened and shut randomly across its surface, some blinking sideways, others dripping with seawater or something worse. Monroe grabbed Levi's arm, dragging him back. Inside. Now. They retreated to the lab, bolting the door behind them. Riley sat in the corner, still wrapped in his blanket, unmoving, mumbling something under his breath. His eyes had a dull gray glaze like the color of drowning. "What do we do?" Levi asked, voice low. Mara's over there. That thing's alive. Nothing we can do until daylight. Monroe muttered. We waited out. The sea will settle. Riley suddenly spoke. Voice hollow. It never settles. It watches. It waits. Monroe stepped toward him. What are you saying? They talked to her, Riley whispered, looking up slowly. Rena. And the others. They were in the water. They weren't swimming. They were sinking upward. What the hell does that mean? Levi snapped. She said they're part of it now. Outside, the sound of wind had stopped. No creaking ropes. No crashing waves. Only silence. And then a knock at the door. 3 times. Slow. Measured. Knock. 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 Levi reached for his harpoon gun. Hands trembling. Monroe unlatched the safety but didn't open the door. Who's there? A pause. Then a voice answered. Mara's voice. Let me in. But it didn't sound right. It was too slow. Too even. Like a recording played half speed. Say something only you'd know. Levi demanded. A pause. Then we kissed in the port bunk 2 nights ago. You had a scratch on your ribs. And said it came from a coral reef. Levi's blood ran cold. That was true. But how do I know you're not one of them? He asked. Silence again. Then the voice replied. Because I remember the way you looked at me after. Scared, not of the kiss, but of the sea. Levi moved to unlock the door. Monroe blocked him. That's not her. Listen. They both turned to Riley, who was now scratching at the wall with his fingernails. She's not alone. It's never just one. They echo. They multiply. They mimic. Suddenly the knocking came again. But from the opposite side of the room. Then from the ceiling. Then from beneath their feet. Jesus Christ. Levi whispered. Lights above them flickered. The temperature dropped again. The air felt wet. Suddenly a panel in the wall burst inward. Seawater gushed through in a roaring surge. The force knocked them off their feet, dragging Levi halfway across the room, before Monroe slammed the emergency bulkhead shut. But something had come through with the water. A shadow, thin, hunched, crawling on all 4s like a broken marionette. Its head was a mass of seaweed and bone, twitching erratically. It hissed. Levi raised the harpoon gun and fired. The creature screamed, a high-pitched shriek that sounded like sobbing underwater, and crumbled into salt, dissolving into the floor. The lights returned. Riley had passed out. Monroe panted. They're getting in. Levi looked to the bolted door. We can't stay here. We need to get to the bridge. Use the distress beacon. Call anyone. Anything. Monroe nodded, helping Riley to his feet. They made their way through the dark halls, water sloshing around their ankles. Every corner felt wrong. Walls pulsed slightly, like breathing. Doors creaked open on their own, and slammed shut behind them. The Calypso's Wraith was no longer just a ship. It was becoming something else. They reached the bridge. Monroe powered up the emergency console. I can try to reroute the beacon manually. Might only give us 30 seconds. Do it. Levi checked the radar. The Isadora Bright was gone. Vanished. Only open ocean remained. But then something pinged. Another vessel. Close. Too close. No way, he muttered. It was the Calypso's Wraith. Their own ship. Duplicated on radar. Monroe looked. What the hell is this? Before he could respond, the console burst into flames, sparking and smoking. Then Levi. He turned. Mara stood in the bridge doorway, soaked, pale, shivering. Her eyes looked normal. Her lips were cracked. Her arms scratched. But she looked real. He ran to her. How did you? She embraced him, whispering. I don't know. I just ran. I kept running through rooms that weren't there. Through memories. The ship is alive. It doesn't just haunt. It feeds. On pain. On secrets.
It wanted to know what broke me. Levi pulled back, checking her eyes. Her pulse. You're real. She nodded slowly. I think so. But it's not over. It never was. I saw them, Levi. Hundreds. People the sea has claimed. They walked the decks of ships lost to time. Some don't even know they're dead. Monroe stood back, watching them both. We need to leave this place. Mara shook her head. It's not a place. It's a presence. It travels. The Isadora Bright was just a carrier. A corpse. And now it's looking for a new host. Behind them, Riley suddenly gasped. Awake. Eyes wide. It's already here.
Please.
Lights burst again. Red emergency beacons flashing. Klaxons wailed. The ship lurched. Turned without input. The engines fired up. They weren't in control anymore. Somewhere below, a door slammed open. Water rushed in. Something was coming. Not from the sea, but from within the ship. The Calypso's Wraith was no longer a vessel. It had become a living nightmare. A drifting tomb possessed by something ancient and unspeakable. The emergency klaxons blared like screams, echoing through the steel corridors, as red light pulsed across the walls, painting everything in blood. Mara held onto the bulkhead as the ship groaned beneath them, metal twisting unnaturally. It's shifting. The whole layout. It's changing. Riley stumbled forward, soaked, his voice ragged. It's rebuilding itself. Levi helped steady him. What does that even mean? Riley looked up, his face drained of all color. It doesn't want to be a ship anymore. It wants to be a body. Down below, the hull let out a shriek of strained steel, as something immense dragged itself through the inner corridors. Footsteps. No, slithering, wet, dragging sounds that weren't bound by physics. Doors warped. Hinges hissed. The floors beneath them rippled as if made of thin skin. Mara's voice was tight. We need to get off this ship. No boats left. Monroe muttered, pointing to the camera feed. The lifeboats had been ripped away. Torn metal and ropes flapping like entrails in the wind. The bridge groaned again, and the console sparked once more. The screens flickered. Static. Then flashes of impossible scenes. The ocean upside down. Mara screaming underwater. Riley's eyes gone black. What the hell is this? Levi whispered. Mara stared at the monitor, showing a hallway just outside engineering. On the feed was her walking calmly, dragging something heavy behind her. But I'm right here, she said, voice breaking. Riley laughed, bitter and hollow. It's not just mimicking us. It's splitting us. Like parasites. We're already infected. Suddenly a speaker crackled. All hands report to the galley. Breakfast is served. The voice was garbled, old, mechanic, but beneath the static was something deeper, laughter. Wet and gurgling, layered into the message. Then the smell hit them. Rot, fish, and cooked meat. From the vents. The galley. Mara gagged. What the hell are they feeding? Don't want to know, Monroe snapped. We go up top deck. Emergency flare. They exited the bridge carefully. Levi in front with the harpoon. Monroe covering the rear. The corridor was warped. Longer than it should have been. The walls breathed. Slow and rhythmic like lungs. Old voices drifted from unseen places. It's just a storm. Keep your head down. They told us not to go below deck. Mama, the ocean's calling again. Mara paused. Eyes wide. That last voice, it was mine. From when I was 6. No, Riley said quietly. It was mine. They ran up the stairs, through a corridor that bled salt water from its seams. The lighting flickered between red and black, offering no clarity, only confusion. At the top of the stairwell they found the hatch. Monroe yanked it open, only to freeze. Outside, the deck was inverted. The sky was below them. Clouds floated beneath their feet. A mirror-like sea hovering above. The stars twisted in slow, agonizing spirals. What in the... Levi muttered. Mara stepped through, but instead of falling, she stood upright. Gravity obeyed her. Somehow, she looked... It's not real. It's dream logic. The ship's trying to trap us in its version of the world. The others followed, and together they emerged onto the top deck. A flare gun lay in the emergency case, miraculously untouched. Monroe grabbed it. I swear, if this thing even works. He fired it. The flare screamed into the sky, which rippled like water and exploded in a sphere of red flame. But instead of fading, it hung there, suspended, and the sky beneath them screamed. The ocean, the false ocean, shattered like glass, and reality shifted again. Suddenly, they were no longer on the Calypso's Wraith. They stood on the Isadora bright, but not as it was. It gleamed, restored to its original state. Fresh sails, shining wood, beautiful, and empty. No sound, no wind, just silence. Where are we? Mara asked. Riley's eyes darted around, and we're not in the present anymore. Levi stepped toward the captain's quarters. Are we dead? No, said a voice behind them. They turned. A man stood there in a white naval coat. Gold trim stained red. His eyes were milky white, skin tight on his skull. His smile was serene, too serene. You're in the memory of the ship, he said. This is where she began, before she drowned. Monroe raised the flare gun again. Who are you? I was her captain, Captain Graydon Holt. I brought her into the storm. I made the deal. Mara's voice trembled. What deal? Graydon's face twitched. There's always something beneath the sea. Something that listens. When men get desperate enough, they speak to it. I begged for survival. I offered my crew. I offered myself. But the ship, she had a soul. She made her own bargain. Behind him, shadows began to emerge. The former crew of the Isadora Bright. Men and women, their faces twisted in permanent expressions of terror. Their limbs bent wrong. Now, Graydon said, stepping aside, she wants you. The crew charged forward. Levi fired, striking a twisted sailor in the chest. It crumbled into salt. Monroe grabbed Mara's hand. We run. They bolted down the deck, as the ghostly sailors gave chase, their feet never touching the wood, their eyes burning with madness. As they reached the mast, the Calypso's Wraith reappeared above them, floating, turning slowly, like a dying whale in the sky. And then the world folded. They were back, on the Calypso's Wraith, covered in water, blood, salt. The flare gun was gone. The deck was cracked. The fog returned.
Riley screamed suddenly, pointing at the mast. Rena, nailed to the wood, arms spread, eyes wide, alive, mouth moving. Mara rushed to her. She's still breathing. Rena's lips parted, barely a whisper escaping. He's coming. Who? Mara cried. Rena's eyes rolled back, and from the fog, a new ship appeared. Black sails, no name, no crew visible. But it was sailing toward them, and every light on the Calypso's Wraith went out. The Calypso's Wraith was swallowed by the unnatural silence, a silence too perfect to be real. Not even the groaning metal of the tortured ship dared to break it. Fog coiled thick and wet around the railings, smothering the last flickers of emergency lights. Then came the creaking, wood, old, impossible. The ship with the black sails emerged like a beast from the mist, massive, motionless, and utterly wrong. Its hull seemed to absorb light, a black so deep it made shadows look pale. No flags, no movement, no crew. Yet Levi, Mara, Monroe, and Riley all felt it watching them. It's not drifting, Levi murmured. It's waiting. They crouched behind the ruined railings of the main deck, eyes fixed on the ghost ship. Mara knelt beside Rena's limp body, pressing fingers to her throat. Still a pulse, weak, thready. Rena, she whispered. What did you mean, he's coming? Rena's lips moved again, but it wasn't her voice that spoke. He wears no crown, but rules the dead. He sails not seas, but broken dread. His name forgotten, his face is wrong. He'll call you home with weeping song. Riley scrambled back, trembling.
That's not her. That's not Rena's body arched violently, then slumped. Her eyes snapped open, black. Just for a second. Then they returned to normal. She's been marked, Monroe said grimly. Or worse, touched. Suddenly a moan echoed from the other ship. Long, low, like a whale's call but with human voices layered inside. The black-sailed ship let out a pulse. No fire, no flash. Just a wave of sound that struck the Calypso's Wraith with a hum deep enough to rattle bones. Everything shook, deckboards cracked. Rust bled from the walls, and below them, in the hull, footsteps. Dozens of them. Then laughter, but warped and metallic, like it was filtering through broken radios. Male, female, childlike. It switched tones without warning. Mara stood. It's pulling us in. It's using sound. We have to break its rhythm. Levi's eyes darted across the deck. If we cut the comms relay, kill the ship's receiver systems, we might block the signal. Do it, Monroe growled, lifting his flare gun like a club. They ran toward the aft tower where the communications core was housed. Every step they took, the ship seemed to resist. Hallways grew longer. Doors appeared, then vanished. At one point, Levi walked straight through a corridor, only to find himself back on the same deck. Mara and Monroe gone. No, he spun. Riley stood behind him. I found you, Riley panted. They're gone, Levi. The ship separated us. How? Riley pointed toward the bridge windows. Look. Levi turned. The Calypso's Wraith now stood on a sea of glass, and beneath it, a reflection of the ship. But the one below was on fire, burning silently. Screaming faces pressed against portholes. That's not us, Levi said. It is, in a way, Riley replied. A version, maybe what will become. Levi narrowed his eyes. Where's Mara? Where's Monroe? Riley blinked. They never existed. Levi's blood ran cold. What? Riley smiled. Too wide, too sharp. I had to make you alone again. That's how the sea prefers its offerings. Levi didn't wait. He lunged, shoving the imposter against the wall. Riley's face began to change. Skin sloughing off like wet paper, eyes rolling in different directions, mouth becoming a vertical slit of jagged coral and rotted teeth. It shrieked, and Levi ran back through the hall, kicking open a rusted hatch. Behind him, the thing crawled like a crab, shrieking, bones snapping as it folded over itself to follow. Then gunfire. Monroe appeared from the shadows, shotgun in hand, blasting the creature off its feet. It hit the bulkhead and exploded into a mass of wet rope and barnacles. Monroe looked at Levi, panting. You okay? Yeah. That wasn't Riley. No. Riley's gone. Taken. That thing, just a memory of him. They reached the comms room. Inside, Mara was already there, prying open the relay housing with a crowbar. I've been looping the ship's frequency back into itself, she said. Feedback should block the black ship's pulse. Suddenly the black-sailed ship sounded again. A screech this time, high-pitched, painful. Blood leaked from Levi's ears. Mara screamed. Monroe dropped to his knees. The sound burrowed into their skulls. Then silence. The relays exploded in sparks. Mara's loop worked. The ship screamed in protest, and the black vessel moved for the first time. It began to glide toward them. Levi staggered up, looking out through the cracked glass. Figures now lined the deck of the black ship. Tall, wrapped in wet canvas. No eyes, just mouths, each one whispering. Even from this distance, he could hear the chant. He walks behind the storm. He walks behind the storm. He walks behind the storm. The deck beneath them cracked, and from the boards, hands emerged. Human hands. Clawing, gripping, dozens, hundreds, pulling themselves upward. Levi turned to Monroe. We need to get off this ship, now. No boats, no flares. There's one thing left, Mara said. Eyes wide. What? She pointed up, at the black ship. We go there. Monroe stared at her like she was mad. You want to board that thing? It's where this began. It's the root. We have to find what's calling the dead. Cut it off. Levi nodded slowly. We end this from inside. More hands broke through the floor. Mara grabbed a rope. Then we climb, as they swung over the side, trying to reach the black ship's chains dangling into the sea. The Calypso's Wraith let out one final cry, a chorus of every soul it had claimed. And as they climbed, something climbed with them. A child's voice from the fog. Where are you going? It's your turn to steer. The chain was slick with rot and seaweed, each link screaming under their weight, as Mara, Levi, and Monroe climbed toward the black-sailed ship. Cold sprayed from the crashing waves below, waves that no longer looked like water, but something darker, thicker, almost alive, moving against the tide as if crawling instead of crashing. As Levi neared the hull, his hand brushed against it. The ship groaned, responded, like a breathing animal waking from a long sleep. Don't touch it, Mara warned from below. It's aware. The side of the vessel had no ladder, no port, no visible entry, just black wood that looked older than time. But then a seam split down the hull with a moaning creak, and a set of steps unfolded like a grotesque welcome mat. A hatch yawned open above them, revealing a corridor bathed in faint blue light. They exchanged glances, no turning back now. Stepping inside, the air changed instantly. It was wet, but not with seawater. The walls pulsed faintly, like skin under a heartbeat. Shadows moved independently from their owners. Somewhere deeper in the ship, bells tolled softly, though no one rang them. The sound of crying drifted through the corridor, always behind them, just beyond the curve of the hallway. Is this flesh? Monroe asked, touching a support beam that felt too warm, too soft. No ship should feel like this, Mara muttered. This is a construct. A vessel of memory. It's not made from wood and nails. It's made from pain. They moved forward, the corridor twisting like a spiral. The ship felt endless, constantly rearranging itself behind them. More than once Levi looked back to find the entrance had vanished. That's when they heard the music, a slow, discordant lullaby drifting through the air, played on no recognizable instrument. It dragged at their thoughts, made their legs heavy. Mara stumbled, falling against a wall that blinked, an eyelid. She screamed and pushed off it, the eye rolling back into the wood with a low groan. They found the source of the music at the end of the hull, a grand chamber filled with broken instruments, harps with gut strings, violins made of bones. A massive pipe organ at the center played itself with tendrils of black smoke pressing the keys. And at the organ's base sat Riley. His eyes were glassy, his fingers, bloodied, moved in time with the pipes, though clearly broken. His jaw hung loose. Levi rushed forward. Riley didn't blink. He just whispered, "He's almost awake." Monroe grabbed Levi, pulling him back. Look at his hands. Riley's fingers were nailed to the keys. He hadn't been playing. He'd been used. Then the music stopped. Riley's body sagged forward. Gone, Mara whispered. A voice echoed from every corner of the ship. He played well. The floor beneath them cracked. They ran through another door deeper into the ship. They entered what looked like a cathedral, tall, arched ceilings made of bone and netting. The pews were lined with faceless sailors, each one missing their mouth. Their heads turned as the trio entered, following them with silent, unblinking gazes. At the altar stood a man, or something shaped like one. He was impossibly tall. His body was draped in seaweed, and tattered. His skin, where visible, was bloated, waterlogged, stitched together with hooks. In place of a face, there was a carved wooden mask, shaped like a helm, splintered, soaked in brine. Around his neck hung dozens of compasses, all spinning without pause. He lifted a hand, and the faceless congregation stood. "You shouldn't be here," he said. His voice was layered, like 5 voices stacked. Levi raised the harpoon. "You calling the dead?" "I am the dead," the creature replied. "I guide the drowned. I mark the dreamer. I am the helmsman, beneath the wake." Monroe stepped forward. "We're ending this. Whatever pact this ship made, whatever curse you're feeding, it ends here." The helmsman tilted his head. Ends. No, you misunderstand. This ship doesn't trap the lost. It frees them. From reality, from time, from suffering. I offer them the drift. Then drift alone, Mara spat. The creature moved. One moment it was by the altar. The next, right in front of her. Mara was frozen. The helmsman leaned close. You've already drifted, Mara. Don't you remember you're drowning? She flinched. What? The walls around them rippled. Reality slipped. Flash. A memory surfaced. Mara underwater, sinking in a storm. A hand reaching toward her. Riley's. She had been on a yacht. Not the Calypso. This was before. Flash. A beach. Her mother calling. But the sky was wrong. Green. The sun blinked like an eye. Mara staggered back. No, you're not real. I am your only reality now. Levi threw the harpoon. It pierced the helmsman's shoulder. He didn't flinch. Instead, he exhaled, and the congregation surged forward. Dozens of faceless corpses flooded the chamber. Monroe fired the shotgun. 2 went down. Mara grabbed Levi's arm and yanked him toward a side passage. They fled again, ducking under beams, sprinting through organ pipes and shadow-cloaked halls. Behind them, the sound of the dead was not footsteps, but laughter. Mara stopped at a sealed door. This is it. How do you know? I can feel it. This ship's heart. She pried the door open. Inside was a small room. At its center, a glowing orb suspended by chains. The core, it pulsed with red light, and inside it, faces, screaming, whispers pressed against the glass. Memories, the ship's power source, Monroe whispered. The collection of all its stolen souls. Levi approached. If we break it, we better be ready for whatever comes out. Mara raised the crowbar. 1, 2, crack. The crack. The orb shattered. Screams poured into the room. Literal screams, like a hurricane made of agony. Wind, darkness, blinding light, and then nothing. Silent. The black-sailed ship lurched. It tilted. The walls cracked. The ceiling groaned. Then the helmsman's voice, distant and furious. You have no idea what you've done. Mara screamed. They bolted through the failing corridors, chased by collapsing walls and the howling souls they had just released. At the top, a hatch opened, back to the Calypso's Wraith. As they leapt through, the black ship imploded, dragged into a whirling vortex of fog and fire, and salt. Silence. They landed hard on the Wraith's deck. It was still. Lights flickered back on. The ocean was calm again, but something still moved below. The helmsman's final words echoed in their heads. He wakes now, and he is hungry.
The deck of the Calypso's Wraith was eerily still, too still. The ocean lay like black glass all around them, a deceptive calm in the aftermath of chaos. Levi lay panting beside Monroe, blood seeping from a wound on his shoulder. Mara crouched, eyes wide, staring at the spot where the black-sailed ship had been just moments ago. It's gone, Monroe muttered. We destroyed it. No, Mara whispered. We destroyed a cage. A low vibration rippled through the ship, subtle but growing beneath them. The metal groaned, not from stress or damage but from pressure. Something was stirring below. The ocean, which moments ago reflected the stars like obsidian glass, began to ripple in concentric circles. Levi slowly sat up, clutching his side. We released something. The core wasn't powering just the ship. It was holding something back. Mara stood, her voice trembling. The helmsman wasn't the end. He was a jailer. From the sea, a sound rose, not a wave, not a scream, but a song. A low, ancient chant, made of languages long dead and others that had never belonged to humanity at all. It came not from the air, but from the bones, vibrating through Monroe, shaking loose memories that didn't belong to them. Monroe dropped to his knees. Make it stop, please. It's inside my head. Then the sea split. Not a wave, not a splash. The ocean opened like a curtain being drawn, revealing only blackness beneath. No floor, no trenches, just depth without end. And from that pit rose something. At first it looked like a shadow. Then it took form. The maw. It wasn't a creature in the traditional sense. No limbs, no eyes, no symmetry, just mass.
endless coils of slick tendrils and barnacle-coated limbs, forming and unforming themselves. In the center, a gaping mouth lined with thousands of teeth, each tooth a screaming face. Not bone, not stone. Souls. Mara clutched the railing as the Calypso's wraith tilted violently toward the abyss. It's drawing us in. Lightning cracked overhead, though no storm brewed. The air itself began to twist. Stars blinked out, one by one. And then they saw her, Rena, standing calmly at the bow, drenched and barefoot, staring into the void with a vacant smile. Rena, Levi shouted. Get back. She didn't respond. The wind howled around her, pulling at her soaked dress. But she didn't move an inch. Then her voice, flat, eerie, wrong. He is awake. He is hungry. I belong to the tide now. She stepped forward off the ship, and didn't fall. She walked across the air as if it were solid, vanishing into the darkness beneath the maw. Mara screamed. Monroe turned to Levi. We need to go. We need to move. To where there's no land. No radio. No flares. We're in open sea with that thing. Mara stared at the abyss. We can't run. We have to seal it, somehow. The orb's gone, Levi snapped. The core's destroyed. We have no tools left. She turned to the ship's bridge. There may be one. They climbed, half dragging Levi toward the control room. The bridge was a mess of shattered glass and twisted metal. Screens flickered with static. Morse code pings tapped against the silence. Random, chaotic, desperate. Monroe scanned the panel. Wait, the ship's old distress system. It's a pulse beacon. It transmits an SOS on deep-sea bands. Mara's eyes lit up. If we boost it, set it to resonance, we might mimic the core's frequency. A signal strong enough to lure whatever that thing is. Lure it, and then what? Levi asked. We trap it, not in the ship. In itself. They went to work, rerouting power, crossing cables, bypassing circuits. Half-fried by supernatural pulses. The bridge lights blinked in and out. The maw's chanting grew louder, shaking the glass. Monroe jammed the final connection. Signal's hot, just say when. Now, Mara said. He hit the switch. The console erupted with static, and a bass-heavy pulse shot into the sky. The entire Calypso's wraith trembled. A blinding column of light shot upward, blue and unnatural like a spear reaching into the stars. The maw screamed. Its body convulsed, the mouth opening wider than possible. For a moment they saw everything. A vision blasted into their minds like a psychic detonation. A world of black oceans and drowning cities. A throne built from wrecked ships. A king without a crown, seated in the dark, whispering through currents in madness. The helmsman was his servant. The black ship, his carriage. The maw, his mouth. And now, he was free. The signal pulsed again. The sea began to twist, the maw folding inward, its limbs constricting around itself. The resonance was working, creating a self-looping prison of vibration and psychic energy. Its scream grew distant, swallowed by its own collapse. Hold it, Mara hissed. Just a little longer. Then, the console exploded. Flames. Sparks. Levi was thrown back, blood spraying from his temple. No, Mara screamed. The pulse stopped. The maw paused mid-collapse. It uncoiled. A single tentacle rose from the pit, like a hand reaching for judgment. And it grabbed the Calypso's wraith. The ship jolted downward, groaning as metal bent under pressure. The tentacle wrapped around the hull like a snake, dragging it inch by inch toward the black spiral. Monroe pulled Mara from the flames. We have to abandon ship. To where? She shrieked. Anywhere but here. There's an emergency buoy, detachable, floats, has beacon backup. They scrambled below deck, weaving through burning corridors and collapsing beams. Levi stumbled behind them, vision doubled. They reached the buoy hatch, a spherical pod barely big enough for three. Monroe shoved the release, clang. The pod popped open. Levi fell inside. Mara dove in. Monroe turned, facing the flames, and the shrieking monster still dragging the wraith toward oblivion. He didn't move. Monroe, Mara yelled, get in. He shook his head. You two still have a chance. This thing knows me now. It wants me. No, no. Levi tried to climb out. Monroe kicked the release. The hatch slammed shut. Through the glass they saw him smile once, sad but calm. Then the pod ejected. It tumbled into the ocean, spinning wildly, leaving the Calypso's Wraith behind, as the maw wrapped it completely in darkness. Silence. Then, a flash of light. The Wraith was gone. The sea was calm again. Stars returned. The pod floated in silence. Inside, Mara and Levi sat in the dark, breathing, bruised, alive. But far below, in the stillness of the deep, the chant had not truly stopped. It only paused. The emergency buoy bobbed quietly on the ocean's surface, drifting through endless waves under a blood-orange sunrise. There was no land in sight, no ship on the horizon. Only Levi and Mara, bruised, bleeding, and alive, trapped inside a steel womb barely large enough for breath. Neither spoke for hours. The silence was thick, too heavy. Levi broke it first, his voice hoarse. "It's over, right?" Mara didn't answer. She just stared through the porthole at the water, her eyes sunken, haunted. "No. We only slowed it down, Monroe." She turned away. He knew. Levi shut his eyes, jaw tight. His fingers clenched around the wound on his side, as the buoy rocked softly. A faint ping from the console interrupted their mourning. The beacon had activated automatically upon launch. With some hope, it was already transmitting distress signals across the open sea. "Help will come," Levi said, mostly to himself. Any ship nearby should pick it up. But Mara wasn't looking at the beacon. She was looking at the water. The waves had changed. They weren't moving naturally anymore. They circled, forming slow spirals around the buoy. "Mara," Levi leaned forward. "What is it?" "Look," she whispered. "A shape beneath the water." No, not one, many. They rose silently from the depths like shadows peeling from glass. Dozens of figures, surrounding the buoy, barely submerged. Their white eyes glowing faintly in the gloom. Their mouths opened and closed in unison, though no sound emerged. "Ghosts," Levi muttered, his voice trembling. "From the ship." "No," Mara said, older. The figures hovered just below the surface, waiting, watching. Then something thudded against the pod. Levi spun, looking at the opposite porthole. "Something hit us." Another thud. The water boiled. Then the singing returned, faint, barely perceptible, but unmistakably the chant. Mara grabbed the emergency flare gun. "If they're still coming, if it's still coming, we can't sit here and wait to die. But if we get out of this pod, we're done," Levi said. "That thing wants us." Mara stared at the flare in her hand. "Then let's give it something to remember." She popped the hatch. The salty wind hit her like a slap. Levi followed, shielding his eyes from the rising sun. And then, the sea parted again, but not like before. This time, the water didn't form a moat. It rose vertically, like a tidal wall, frozen in place. In the hollow, something hovered above the ocean, suspended in a bubble of space, where time broke. The eye of the maw. It saw them, not physically, but intimately. It knew them, their fears, their failures, their memories. Mara screamed and dropped to her knees as visions flooded her mind. Her mother drowned in a bathtub. Her father lost at sea. The yacht crash. Her brother's face bloated and pale beneath the surface. Levi saw the black ship again, only this time, he was aboard, holding the helm, surrounded by chanting sailors with no mouths. He was the new helmsman. He vomited onto the deck of the buoy. The eye blinked once, then split open. From it came the true form of the thing they had disturbed. It wasn't a beast. It wasn't a god. It was memory. Memory made flesh. Every lost ship, every drowned soul, every secret whispered into the dark by terrified sailors. It had become this, a mosaic of horror and truth. And now, it wanted to remember them. Mara raised the flare gun. "Back to hell," she fired. The flare streaked through the dark, hit the eye, and passed through it harmlessly. But then something unexpected happened. The flare illuminated something inside the creature. Monroe floating in the core of the thing, eyes open, body intact but glowing, his presence stabilizing the creature, holding it back, sacrificed, but still fighting. Mara gasped, "He's in there." He's holding it together. Levi blinked. If we reach him, we could seal it forever. But it'll kill us. Mara's eyes were steel. It's worth it. The boy rocked violently as the eye began to collapse in on itself. Mara dove into the sea. Levi hesitated, heart pounding, then followed. They swam toward the creature, through the ring of ghostly figures, still watching in silence. The water grew colder with every stroke. Mara's limbs went numb. Levi could barely see, then the pulse, a heartbeat from the deep. It almost knocked them unconscious. But they pushed on, closer now. The eye opened wider to accept them, and they slipped inside. No water, no air, just light. They floated in a vast chamber of memories. Visions whirling like a tornado, thousands of lives, all stolen, all screaming. In the center, Monroe hovered like a crucified star, his veins lit with gold. Mara reached for him, her fingers touched his, and the storm stopped. For one beautiful second, silence. Then, the memories began to peel away. One by one, released, unburdened. The creature screamed in rage, not a sound, but a shattering force of gravity and pain. It writhed, trying to seal itself again, to preserve what it had stolen. But it was too late. The trio, hands joined, became the lock, a blast of light. The sea folded in, the eye gone. No ship, no boy, nothing, just silence. Then, months later, a fishing vessel off the coast of Norway found a strange object floating in the water. An emergency buoy, inside a flare gun, a broken compass, and a page torn from a ship's log, scrawled in blood. Do not follow the ghost ships. They are not ships. They are bait. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more horror stories from the depths of imagination. The sea holds many secrets, and this was only one of them. Would you dare uncover the next?